Technically speaking, your husband never actually cheated on you with me. Those words cut deeper than if this high-end escort had said the opposite. I sat in an upscale coffee shop in downtown Chicago, facing what appeared to be a simple young woman, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I was trying to process how 7 years of what I thought was a perfect marriage had crumbled over a cup of lukewarm cappuccino. Yet it all started so beautifully. I remember that New Year's corporate party as vividly as if it happened yesterday, not 7 years ago. Back then, I was completely different, a shy HR specialist who had just gotten promoted. I still recall nervously adjusting my black dress, bought specifically for that evening. Sarah, already my best friend then, had insisted I wear it. Honey, in this dress, you're absolutely going to catch someone's eye. She declared with that trademark assertiveness of hers that left no room for argument. The party was in full swing. I sat at my table, sipping champagne and watching my colleagues gradually lose their office propriety. And then I saw him. Nathan stood out in the crowd, tall, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, with that special half smile of his that somehow made my knees weak. He worked in it, and I caught glimpses of him around the office, but never had the courage to start a conversation. Excuse me, his voice came unexpectedly close. Is this seat taken? I nearly choked on my champagne. Yes, sure. No, honey. Yes, it's free. He laughed, and his laughter was so infectious that I couldn't help but smile back. He said, sitting down, I've been wanting to meet you for a while now. You're Emma from HR, right? Have you been stalking me? I playfully narrowed my eyes, feeling the champagne giving me courage. Let's just say, he smiled mysteriously, when a beautiful woman rejects your vacation request for August, it's hard to forget. Maybe if I suggest taking that vacation together, the decision might change. That evening flew by like a whirlwind. Dancing, conversations that made my head spin, his jacket on my shoulders when we stepped out onto the balcony for fresh air. Nathan turned out to be an amazing conversationalist, witty, attentive, with a special sensitivity to whoever he was talking to. Our relationship developed at lightning speed. Sarah called it a tornado of passion, but I just felt like I'd finally found my home. Nathan was perfect. He remembered every little detail I mentioned, arranged surprises when I least expected them. He proposed on the day we got approved for our mortgage. We were standing in the middle of our empty new apartment in the suburbs, discussing where to put the couch, when he suddenly dropped to one knee. I know this isn't the most romantic moment, he began, pulling out a ring. But right now, I realize I want to spend my entire life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning, argue about unwashed dishes, choose wallpaper together. Emma, will you marry me? I burst into tears right there in the middle of our empty apartment, with the echo of our voices bouncing off the bare walls. It was perfect, our special place, our future home. The wedding was modest but warm. My friend Sarah, who had already managed to open her own event planning agency by then, outdid herself with the organization. Mark my words, she told me before the ceremony, adjusting my veil, you'll be the happiest couple I know. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, a radiant bride with shining eyes, and believed every word she said. How naive I was. Could I have imagined that a few years later, I'd be sitting in a coffee shop face to face with an escort my husband had been visiting? The memories flood back, each one more painful than the last, as I sit here, trying to make sense of it all. The perfect husband, the perfect life, the perfect lie. But nothing prepares you for the moment when perfection shatters, leaving you to pick up the pieces of what you thought was an unbreakable truth. The first 2 years of our married life were like living in a fairy tale. We furnished our apartment, made plans, dreamed about children. Nathan continued to surprise me. Love notes hidden in unexpected places, spontaneous romantic dinners, little gifts for no reason at all. I told him one evening as we lay cuddled on our couch, sometimes I think I just made you up. Men this perfect don't really exist. He tensed up slightly, but quickly laughed it off. Trust me, I'm far from perfect. If only I had known then how prophetic those words would be. I started noticing the first red flags last fall. They were so subtle that initially I dismissed them as paranoia, but they accumulated like water drops in an already full glass, ready to spill over at any moment. Nathan began staying late at work, and the most unusual part was that it happened like clockwork on the same day. Though I didn't realize this pattern immediately, his reasons seemed perfectly logical. At first, they were just urgent projects, normal stuff for an it guy. I even felt proud. My husband was in such high demand. But then something else appeared, something elusive, a false note in the familiar melody of our relationship. Sorry, kitten. I'll be working late again this Thursday. His voice on the phone sounded normal, but something scratched at my ears. Client from Seattle. Important video call. Well, we need to pay that mortgage, so work if you have to. I tried to keep my voice light, but anxiety was already stirring inside. You know how it goes. He sighed. Really sorry, but don't wait up with dinner. I hung up and stood frozen in the middle of our kitchen. Our dinner. Baked salmon with herbs, his favorite, slowly cooling on the table. The candles I'd lit half an hour ago cast flickering shadows on the starched tablecloth. Today was the anniversary of our first meeting, and I planned to surprise him. My phone vibrated again. A message from Sarah. How about a glass of wine? I'm at that new place on the corner near your office. 30 minutes later, I was sitting across from her in a cozy bar where a pianist was playing something jazzy. Sweetie, you look like hell. Sarah was always direct. What's going on? Nothing. I twirled the wine glass in my hands. I mean, really nothing. Just, Nathan's working late again. Sarah raised an eyebrow. And how often does this happen? Not often, but frighteningly regular. Lately, once every week or two he stays late. I took a sip. You know, he used to always send photos from the office when he worked late. Selfies with coffee, sunset from the window, funny notes on the whiteboard. Now it's just messages. And what does your gut tell you? Sarah leaned forward. My gut. I stumbled. It's screaming that something's wrong. But that's crazy, right? Nathan's not like that. Honey. Sarah covered my hand with hers. When I found out about my ex affair, the first thing I said was, he's not like that. You know what my mom said? Darling, they're all like that, just not all of them get the chance. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. My father's face flashed before my eyes, how he looked that day when Mom discovered his mistress. The same guilty and confused expression Nathan sometimes has when he comes home late. No, 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 no. I can't think like this. Not about him. But suspicion had already taken root. I began noticing details I'd missed before. One morning, on the day Nathan was supposed to work late, I woke up earlier than usual and watched him getting ready for work. Something in his movements was different. He chose his shirt more carefully than usual, styled his hair with extra attention, even used cologne, something he usually saved for special occasions. Important meeting today, I asked, pretending I'd just woken up. He flinched, barely noticeable, but I caught the movement. Oh yeah, clients flying in from San Francisco. Maybe we could go out for dinner tonight, I suggested. We haven't been out together in ages. Sorry, not tonight, he smiled apologetically. Tons of work after the meeting. I watched him tie his tie, the one I'd given him for his birthday. His fingers trembled slightly. When he leaned in to kiss me goodbye, I felt his heart racing. At that moment I knew something had irreversibly changed, like a crack running through the perfect mirror of our life, distorting the reflection, and the more I stared into that crack, the more details I noticed. That evening, I sat in our bedroom for hours, staring at the photos on the wall. There we were at our wedding, happy, in love. Our first selfie in the new apartment, covered in dust and surrounded by boxes, but radiating joy. Last year's vacation in Hawaii, sunset, ocean, his hand on my waist. I pulled out my phone and opened our banking history. Regular cash withdrawals of roughly the same amount over the last 3 months. Every 2 weeks, always on Thursdays. The ATM, according to the address, was located at some nondescript hotel on the outskirts of town. Nausea crept up my throat. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. I need your help. My voice was shaking. Finally, There was no surprise in her voice, only determination. I was wondering when you'd ask. It's here. I showed Sarah my phone with the payment history. We were sitting in her office, surrounded by scattered wedding invitation samples and flower arrangements. Sarah studied the address carefully, her long nails tapping against the desk. Her face grew darker with each passing moment. I know this place, she finally said, and I've got news for you, honey, but it's not the good kind. She paused, clearly choosing her words. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. Just say it, I pleaded. What's there? Emma, Sarah sighed. It's a hotel. Not an expensive one, but certain girls work there, providing, let's say, specific services. The room started spinning. I gripped the armrests of my chair. You mean to tell me? Yes, sweetie. In a way, it's almost better. It's not some love nest with a mistress. It's a place for those who prefer paid encounters by the hour. I laughed, hysterically, painfully. No, 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 no. This has to be some mistake. Maybe he really does work there. Maybe there's some office space. In that hotel? Sarah shook her head. Trust my experience, there are no offices there. I can find out everything for sure. We organize various events, and I have certain connections in those circles. Don't. I stood up abruptly. I don't want to know. I don't want to know anything. The next week, I lived in a fog. Mechanically went to work, cooked dinners, smiled at Nathan's stories, and every time he touched me, something inside me broke. Then came that cursed Thursday. I sat at home, watching the clock and imagining him entering that hotel, choosing someone. A redhead last week, a brunette this week, a blonde next week. My imagination painted pictures, each worse than the last. At some point, I couldn't take it anymore and called Sarah. Find out everything, I said instead of hello. I need the truth, even if it's the worst truth possible. Are you sure? Her voice was filled with concern. Some things are better left unknown. I'll go crazy if I don't know for sure. Sarah was silent for a moment. Okay, give me a couple of days. Those days stretched into eternity. I barely slept, jumped at every message. Nathan seemed to notice nothing, or pretended not to notice. Finally, Sarah called. I have a contact. He always meets with the same girl. Her name is Crystal. She works there under the name Candy. I explained the situation to her, and surprisingly, she agreed to talk to you, but only in person. Why in person? I felt cold. I don't know if I can even meet with this. Can't we just do it over the phone? She insists, says these things aren't discussed over the phone. She has something she wants to tell you. The meeting was set at some trendy cafe downtown. I arrived early, choosing a corner table. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee cup. Crystal wasn't anything like I'd imagined. A young, polished woman in a crisp business suit with a perfect manicure and an expensive designer bag. She could have been a banker or a corporate lawyer. I never would have guessed she was involved in that kind of work. Your husband? Crystal asked, getting straight to business as she pulled out her phone. Nathan. Yes, I could barely breathe. So you really know him. Do I know him? She let out a bitter laugh. I suppose you could say that. Every other Thursday, like clockwork. Oh God! I covered my face with my hands. And what? What happens there? Please, I need to know. Listen, her voice unexpectedly softened. I was married once myself, and I know what's going through your head right now. But what you're imagining, it's not quite like that. Then what? I was almost shouting. What's it like? Does he come there too? Drink tea? No, of course not, she shook her head. Then I don't understand. What are you trying to say? Let me put it this way. Your husband never touches anyone. There's zero physical contact. He just watches and talks. He has certain fantasies, but he's afraid to act on them, even in marriage with you. This is insane, I laughed hysterically. So what? This somehow doesn't count as cheating. He just watches. Whether it's cheating or not, that's for you to decide. But I'll tell you a secret. Many men actually come just for this. Married, successful, seemingly happy men. They're not lacking physical intimacy, they're lacking acceptance, understanding. And me? Am I not accepting him? Not understanding? Am I such a terrible wife? Has he ever tried talking to you about this? About what? About how he likes going to your hotel, paying money to? Watch. You know, Crystal sighed, I'm breaking every rule of confidentiality here, but I can see how much you're hurting. So I'll tell you one thing, your husband loves you. He's so afraid of losing you that he'd rather pay money to strangers and trust them with his deepest fantasies than risk shattering his perfect image in your eyes. This is a nightmare, and everything you've said, is this supposed to comfort me? Somehow make it okay that he goes to you. No, but it should help you make a decision. That's the only reason I agreed to meet you. After all, what's worse? A husband who physically cheats with a mistress, or a husband who pays just to watch because he's too scared to even hint to his wife about his desires? I don't know. Tears were rolling down my cheeks. I really don't know. And that's okay. She handed me a tissue. These things aren't resolved in one conversation. I'm sorry, but I have a client in half an hour. I need to go. And please don't try to contact me again. I've already broken all the rules. I wish you luck with your marriage. I watched her leave, walking with the confident stride of a successful woman who had just finished another business meeting. Then I ran out of the cafe. I was shaking. I couldn't breathe. Sarah's words from years ago echoed in my head. Some secrets are better left buried. But it was too late for that now. The truth was out, ugly and raw, and I had to decide what to do with it. The perfect marriage, the perfect husband, the perfect lie, it was all crumbling around me like a house of cards in a storm. I wandered through downtown Chicago, staring ahead but seeing nothing. The November wind whipped stinging snow in my face, but I barely felt the cold. Inside, there was only emptiness, ringing, deafening emptiness. He just watches. Those words kept spinning in my head like a broken record. 7 years. For 7 years, I thought I knew this man. Every feature, every habit, every thought. And now, my phone vibrated again. Nathan. Fourth missed call in the last hour. Baby, where are you? I'm worried. I laughed hysterically. He's worried. What about me? Wasn't I worried all those Thursdays when he was working late? My feet carried me to our house on their own. I stopped across the street, looking up at the illuminated windows of our apartment. There, on the 15th floor, was our life. Our dreams, plans, hopes. Our perfect family. I remembered our first day there. How we sat on the floor among boxes, eating pizza and dreaming about the future. This will be the nursery, Nathan had said, hugging me. And here we'll put a big couch, where we can lay around in the evenings watching movies. Was it all a lie, or not all of it? I pulled out my phone, opened the gallery. Here we are in Hawaii last summer. Tanned, happy. The way he looks at me. Can anyone fake that? Your husband loves you, Crystal had said. He's so afraid of losing you that he'd rather pay money and open up to us than risk losing his perfect image in your eyes. Love. What is it, really? Is just watching enough to consider it cheating? If he'd been going to a therapist, I wouldn't be asking this question. But he goes, there. My mother's voice echoed in my memory, her words after divorcing Dad. Sweetie, betrayal isn't just about the physical. It's about trust, about honesty, about being able to look each other in the eye. But had Nathan looked me in the eye all these months? Really looked? I sank onto a snow-covered bench in the park across from our building. The snowstorm intensified, turning the urban landscape into a blurry watercolor. Like our life, was once a clear picture, now just a smudged stain. My phone vibrated again. Sarah this time. How are you, honey? Need help. Help. What kind of help could there be? How do you fix something that's broken from the inside? Well, okay, let's say I imagined our future. Here I am, going home. What then? Pretend I don't know anything. Wonder every Thursday, is he really at work or again? There, with candy, just watching. Today he's watching, but tomorrow, in a year? Or do I start a fight? Demand explanations. He has certain fantasies, but he's afraid to act on them with you. even in marriage. And what about me? Why is he afraid to talk to me? What did I do wrong? Maybe if I'd been more open, more understanding. No, no. I can't blame myself for this. It was his choice to lie, to hide, to deceive. His choice to seek understanding from strange women for money, our family's money, and we have a mortgage. But he didn't sleep with her, technically didn't cheat, just watched. Just. What a mocking word. What's just about any of this? Why is my life suddenly like some primetime drama? Only in TV shows, everything's simpler. There are villains and heroes, black and white. But us. We have 7 years of life, a shared mortgage, plans for children. Do I still love him? Who do I love? The real Nathan or that image he so carefully maintained? My phone rang again. Nathan. I stared at his picture on the screen, smiling, familiar, beloved, stranger. Betrayal isn't just about the physical, it's about trust. I rose from the bench covered in white. The snow had almost stopped. The lights in our apartment were still on. He was waiting for me. Waiting, not knowing that I knew everything. That every second of his lives was recorded, documented, filed away. My finger hovered over the call button. One call, and everything would change. Forever. I looked at my reflection in the dark phone screen. Who is this woman? The one ready to close her eyes to technically not cheating, or the one for whom any lie is unforgivable, or maybe somewhere in between, where real people live, not perfect Instagram pictures, but complex, contradictory, frightened humans.